Amid the relentless crescendo of the Vietnam War, the deep, rhythmic drone of a Bell UH-1 Iroquois helicopter, better known as a Huey, cuts through the dense canopy of Laos's jungles, signaling its approach to the covert U.S. radar base, Lima Site 85. Laden with crucial military provisions, the helicopter weaves over the rugged terrain. As the Huey nears its destination, the serenity of its mission shatters. The crew, a pilot and co-pilot, spot a quartet of North Vietnamese Antonov AN-2 biplanes. These enemy aircraft, rudimentary yet lethal, are already unleashing a barrage of bombs on the hidden installation. With no weapons on board, and facing the sparse defenses of the base, the crew is under immense pressure. The destruction of Lima Site 85's radar would be a severe blow to U.S. operations. Amidst the chaos, a spark of ingenuity strikes the Huey's mechanic. Tucked among the crates of supplies are several AK-47 assault rifles. The fight was on. The Bell UH-1 Iroquois had first been developed in the 1950s to fulfill the U.S. Army's demand for a new medical evacuation and utility helicopter. Its Lycoming T-53 single turboshaft engine soon proved a highly effective alternative to the more common piston-based engines used by many of its contemporaries due to its greater reliability and higher power-to-weight ratio. Initially designated HU-1, giving rise to its famous nickname, Huey, the helicopter's name was changed to UH-1 in 1962, the same year it was first deployed in Vietnam. As the conflict in Southeast Asia escalated, it found itself used for a range of missions, including search and rescue operations, transportation of troops and supplies, aeromedical evacuation, and general support. Some were even fitted out with guns and rockets to engage in combat. However, the one flown by pilot Ted Moore and flight mechanic Glenn Woods, as they headed out to deliver supplies on January 12, 1968, was not one of those Hueys. In fact, they were not even technically military personnel, and the Huey they flew went by its civilian designation of Bell 205. Moore and Woods were employees of Air America, a civilian airline owned and operated by the CIA that conducted covert operations during the Vietnam War. That day, their destination was Pho Pha Thi, a mountain in northern Laos that locals believe is inhabited by spirits. In early 1968, however, it was inhabited by the U.S. Air Force, who had constructed a secret base on top of the mountain. Known as Lima Site 85, or Channel 97, it had been created in 1966 to house a TACAN, or Tactical Air Navigation System, joined the following year by a TSQ-81 radar. With Lima Site 85 located just 15 miles away from the border with North Vietnam and around 150 miles away from the capital city of Hanoi, it was perfectly positioned to use these systems to provide precise targeting for Operation Rolling Thunder, the intensive aerial bombing campaign by the Americans and South Vietnamese against their North Vietnamese enemy. This proved particularly important during the monsoon season, when heavy cloud cover often led to poor visibility. Without actually being able to see through the weather, bombers could still hit their targets with a high degree of accuracy. It's believed that Lima Site 85 was responsible for the guidance of 55% of all aerial attacks against targets in North Vietnam in the years up to and including 1967. However, Moore and Woods were not heading to Lima Site 85 to equip the Air Force. Taking advantage of the base's clandestine nature and remote location, the CIA had been using it to covertly train and support friendly forces from throughout the region, including volunteer anti-communist guerrillas from ethnic minority groups such as the Hmongs, Khmer, and Montagnard, as well as mercenaries from Thailand and Taiwan. Air America aircraft like Moore and Woods Huey were used to supply and assist these operations, in addition to other highly classified CIA missions. As Lima Site 85 was so secret and isolated, the U.S. did not feel the need to provide it with a strong defense system, believing it highly unlikely to come under attack. However, by early 1968, the North Vietnamese had not only learned of the base's existence, but also discovered its location and significance. They were intent on disrupting the relentless U.S. airstrikes, but realized that the installation's mountaintop position would make it extremely difficult to penetrate with a ground attack. Instead, they began planning a bombing raid of their own, determined to exact revenge on their enemy. The aircraft they chose for the mission to destroy the radar at Lima Site 85 was the Antonov AN-2, known as the Colt by the United States. This was a biplane originally created by the Soviet Union in 1947 as a utility aircraft in forestry and agriculture. Its robust 9-cylinder Festsov ASH-62 radial engine was perfect for safely flying at the low altitudes and low speeds often required for these activities. It was soon noted but this could also make a good option for various military roles, such as deploying paratroopers and performing reconnaissance missions. By the mid-1960s, this had led to it being integrated into the air forces of many other communist countries, including North Vietnam. While their arsenal at the time included much faster and more sophisticated bombers, such as the twin-jet-engine Ilyushin IL-28, the North Vietnamese realized they would not be suitable for a surprise attack on Lima Site 85, as the base's powerful radar system would easily detect them. Instead, they decided to take advantage of the comparatively primitive AN-2's ability to fly low and slow to approach the installation undetected. First, however, the 4 AN-2s selected for the mission would need to be adapted in order to be able to carry out the attack. They were fitted with rocket pods under the lower wing, each containing 12 57mm folding fin aerial rockets, and were also provided with 20 250mm mortar rounds equipped with aerial bomb fuses. These improvised bombs were deployed using a rudimentary release mechanism and tubes installed on the floor of the aircraft for this specific function. The 4 AN-2s set off on their bombing mission on the morning of January 12, 1968, from an airbase in northeastern North Vietnam. Reaching Lima Site 85 by the afternoon, the 4 AN-2s split into 2 pairs, with one pair beginning the attack while the other pair circled above. Just as the North Vietnamese had hoped, the personnel on base had no idea that Lima Site 85 had been discovered, and the sudden bombing raid caught them completely by surprise. However, the AN-2's mission was to get off to a rocky start. Confused by the installation's heavy camouflage, they failed to correctly identify the radar facility and started attacking a less important structure instead. Before the North Vietnamese air crews had a chance to realize that error, a flurry of ammunition came their way. It was now their turn to be surprised, as with limited anti-aircraft measures on the base, a Thai mercenary had grabbed his AK-47 and, heroically attempting to protect the site single-handedly, had started frantically pumping rounds at them. But his desperate attack was not in vain. As he kept firing until he ran out of bullets, one of the low-flying AN-2s came crashing down into a mountain ridge. Taken aback by this unexpected defense, the 3 remaining North Vietnamese aircraft decided to abort their mission, turning tail to head back toward the border. While this chaotic scene unfolded, Ted Moore and Glenn Woods gradually approached Lima Site 85 in their Huey helicopter to drop off supplies, blissfully unaware of the mayhem awaiting them. However, as the base came into sight, it immediately became apparent that this was not going to be their usual straightforward delivery. Witnessing the shocking sight of the biplanes attacking the installation, Moore would later state that it, quote, looked like something out of World War I. As civilian airmen flying an unarmed helicopter, some crews may have taken one look at the bedlam and gotten out of there as quickly as possible, but not Moore and Woods. Realizing that Lima Site 85's lack of any substantial air defense rendered it alarmingly vulnerable, they were not about to leave it to its fate. As the 2 men studied the unusual enemy aircraft, they noticed a key detail that would give their Huey the upper hand. They were actually flying faster than the AN-2s. At the same time, they remembered that part of their delivery included a shipment of AK-47s destined for the forces on base. If they were able to use their speed advantage to catch up with one of the biplanes, then maybe, just maybe, they would be able to get close enough to score a hit. Without wasting a moment, Glenn Woods made his way through the Huey's cramped interior to pluck one of the assault rifles from its crate, loading up as Ted Moore gave chase to the AN-2s. Fortunately for the Huey's crew, the biplanes had severely limited rearward visibility, meaning that approaching from behind, they could sneak up on the enemy aircraft without their pilots noticing. As the Huey drew near the biplane, Woods stood in the helicopter's open door. Taking aim at the aircraft furthest back in the formation, he began shooting. As Moore pulled the helicopter directly above the AN-2, the intrepid flight mechanic rained down a wild frenzy of bullets upon the biplane's upper wing. The resulting damage forced the AN-2 to slow down further as it descended. Determined not to let their victim escape, Moore and Woods moved in closer still. Woods was now within range of the biplane's cockpit. Lifting his AK sight to eye level, he looked firmly down the barrel, carefully lining up the North Vietnamese pilot. Squeezing the trigger, Woods sent a staccato rattle of gunfire ringing out through the air as he swung the rifle across to take out the co-pilot as well. Within seconds, the AN-2 stalled before going into a flat spin as it plummeted to its doom, close to the North Vietnamese border. The remaining 2 biplanes raced back to their base in North Vietnam as fast as they could go, eager to avoid a similar fate to their companions. Meanwhile, the triumphant Huey began heading back toward Lima Site 85. Having successfully seen off the enemy bombing raid, Moore and Woods were finally able to complete their delivery. Their unique score that day is widely recognized as the first occasion in history in which a helicopter shot down a fixed-wing aircraft, as well as also being the CIA's first recorded air-to-air victory. The daring defense of Lima Site 85 by the 2 airmen and the Thai mercenary who shot down the other AN-2 ensured minimal damage to the base, and crucially, its radar system remained intact. However, despite the men's impressive performance that day, the installation would not last much longer. Although the attempted bombing raid on the base had exposed its vulnerability, the U.S. ignored the necessity to increase its defenses. Just 2 months later, in what would be known as the Battle of Lima Site 85, the North Vietnamese came back for vengeance, sending over 3,000 men to storm the base. This time, they were more successful, capturing the radar. While the U.S. Air Force returned in subsequent days to bomb the captured radar and destroy any other classified documentation and operation information left behind at the site, the elimination of such a vital American asset represented a clear and significant victory for North Vietnam.